It's been a long time since I have been able to articulate the impact of that experience for me because I could not safely use the word betrayal.
To see something is to come in contact with something to which one is always already related. It was always by looking, not within one's soul, but outside it, at another being related to it, that one's soul could know itself. Millions of self-interests in a melting pot, a million ways to hope. Hope of solidarity is like the skin of a chameleon. Its intuition adapts, sometimes camouflages, to the spontaneous environment to self-preserve the spirit. In what spirit is the question? This is an American family tree. Must we not acknowledge that in each of us there are the same principles and habits which there are in the state, and that from the individual they pass into the state? How else can they come there? Take the quality of passion or spirit. It would be ridiculous to imagine that this quality, when found in states, is not derived from the individuals who are supposed to possess it.
Western Defense Command and 4th Army Wartime Civil Control Administration. Presidio of San Francisco, California, May 3, 1942. Instructions to all persons of Japanese ancestry living in the following area. All of that portion of the city of Los Angeles, state of California, within that boundary beginning at the point at which North Figueroa Street meets a line following the middle of the Los Angeles River. Thence southerly and following the said line to East 1st Street. Thence westerly on East 1st Street to Alameda Street. Thence southerly on Alameda Street to East 3rd Street. Thence northwesterly on East 3rd Street to Main Street. Thence northerly on Main Street to 1st Street. Thence northwesterly on 1st Street to Figueroa Street. Thence northeasterly on Figueroa Street to the point of beginning. Pursuant to the provisions of Civilian Exclusion Order Number 33, this headquarters, dated May 3, 1942, all persons of Japanese ancestry, both alien and non-alien, will be evacuated from the above area by 12 o'clock noon Pacific Western Time, Saturday, May 9, 1942. The following instructions must be observed. Number 1. A responsible member of each family, preferably the head of the family, or the person in whose name most of the property is held, and each individual living alone, will report to the Civil Control Station to receive further instructions. This must be done between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. on Monday, May 4th, 1942, or between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. on Tuesday, May 5th, 1942. Number 2. Evacuees must carry with them on departure for the Assembly Center the following property. A. Bedding and linens, no mattress, for each member of the family. B. Toilet articles for each member of the family. C. Extra clothing for each member of the family. D. Sufficient knives, forks, spoons, plates, bowls, and cups for each member of the family. E. Essential personal effects for each member of the family. All items carried will be securely packaged, tied, and plainly marked with the name of the owner and numbered in accordance with instructions obtained at the Civil Control Station. The size and number of the packages is limited to that which can be carried by the individual or family group. Number 3. No pets of any kind will be permitted. Number 4. No personal items and no household goods will be shipped to the Assembly Center. Number 5. The United States government, through its agencies, will provide for the storage, at the sole risk of the owner, of the more substantial household items, such as iceboxes, washing machines, pianos, and other heavy furniture. Cooking utensils and other small items will be accepted for storage if crated, packed, and plainly marked with the name and address of the owner. Only one name and address will be used by a given family. Number 6. Each family and individual living alone will be furnished transportation to the Assembly Center or will be authorized to travel by private automobile in a supervised group. All instructions pertaining to the movement will be obtained at the Civil Control Station. Go to the Civil Control Station between the hours of 8 a.m. and 5 p.m., Monday, May 4th, 1942, or between the hours of 8 a.m. and 5
Even if you're not doing anything wrong, you're being watched and recorded, and the storage capability of these systems increases every year consistently by orders of magnitude, to where it's getting to the point you don't have to have done anything wrong. You simply have to eventually fall under suspicion from somebody, even by a wrong call, and then they can use the system to go back in time and scrutinize every decision you've ever made, every friend you've ever discussed something with, and attack you on that basis to sort of derive suspicion from an innocent life and paint anyone in the context of a wrongdoer.
The important thing is that as I was growing up, my grandfather was very supportive. He said that it was very important for us to be the best citizens that we could be. And to the extent that he actually said, well, you don't have to go to Japanese language school because I want you to concentrate on your English studies. Of course, many of us at that period of time were really shocked when on a Sunday morning we heard news about Japan bombing Pearl Harbor.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. There is no blinking at the fact that our people, our territory, and our interests are in grave danger. With confidence in our armed forces, with the unbounding determination of our people, we will gain the inevitable triumph, so help us God. But since the unprovoked and dastardly attack by Japan on Sunday, December 7th, 1941, a state of war has existed between the United States and the Japanese Empire.
Congress, with overwhelming acclaim, then voted the declaration of a state of war
and the President signed it 3 hours after this historic scene.
When my grandmother died in 1954, my grandfather wanted to bury her in her family's plot in Rose Hill Cemetery. You know, there's still 3 lots there, and her mother was buried there. But because she had a Japanese last name, they refused to do it at that time. They said because she had a Japanese, her last name was Japanese. Her mother was from Scotland and her father was from Ireland. And when they came back from Japan in 1923, she changed the name. She changed his name too. She had changed the name to Masmat because of difficulty for my daughters, something like that. I always objected to that. I thought it was charm. I was the rebel. Why can't he be who he is?
I thought that he would, just grow and thrive because both of my children had. When he was only 3 months old, and he died. When the funeral director got off the phone, he turned to us and said, "Well, I'm sorry to let you know that cemetery would not be able to provide cremation services there, and they also will not be able to provide burial for your son." And so we said, "Well, why is that?" And the response is, and I'm not clear because it was such a traumatic shock, but I took it to mean not just that Timothy was an Asian child, it was because he was a Japanese child, that they couldn't cremate him and they couldn't provide burial space for him. And I was devastated because to me, that was unadulterated racism. How can you have a policy like that at a cemetery when Timmy is only 3 months old? He hasn't had life enough to do anything bad, to have life, to have a character of his own, whose behavior or whatever could be judged unworthy. I thought, you mean to tell me that so long as the person is white, whether he or she committed criminal acts or was a horrible person. You mean to tell me that it is okay for them to buy this kind of plot or to have this kind of service, but not my child?
Solidarity dialectically combines opposites, contradictions, and differences. This lively combinations of differences doesn't promise peace, and often promises discord. And we ask, where is hope? Do we want more prisons, or do we want more friendships? All the authorities exercising individual control function according to a double mode, that of binary division and branding, of bad sane, dangerous harmless, normal abnormal, and that of coercive assignment, of differential distribution. Who he is, where he must be, how he is to be characterized, how he is to be recognized, how a constant surveillance is to be exercised over him in an individual way. The structure of surveillance is a form of prison, an invisible prison, inducing in the citizen a state of conscious and permanent visibility that assures the automatic functioning of power. You are an inmate under surveillance.
Okay, you got me. I give up.
You can't come forward against the world's most powerful intelligence agencies and be completely free from risk, because they're such powerful adversaries that no one can meaningfully oppose them. If they want to get you, they'll get you in time. But at the same time, you have to make a determination about what it is that's important to you. And if living unfreely but comfortably is something you're willing to accept, and I think many of us are, it's the human nature. You can get up every day, you can go to work, you can collect your large paycheck for relatively little work against the public interest, and go to sleep at night after watching your shows. But if you realize that that's the world that you helped create, and it's going to get worse with the next generation and the next generation who extend the capabilities of this sort of architecture of oppression, you realize that you might be willing to accept any risk. And it doesn't matter what the outcome is, so long as the public gets to make their own decisions about how that's applied.
All during that process, actually, I never felt that I needed to question God for why did this happen. Because I also understood, I think, that it was a very human experience. It was wartime. And actually, I think I might have tried a couple of times, because they knew that I had come out of camp. I think I might have tried to tell them about it. But I could tell that their minds were drifting away. So I stopped talking about it.
The quality of the state is derived from the individual spirit. How are we to see all the differences? How are we to form a friendship, and not a prison for each other. 442nd Regiment, the heroes who fought for the American freedom, whose own national identity was questioned, whose own families were incarcerated by the very country they sacrificed their lives for. What was the American identity then? What is the American identity now? Soldiers, rebels, cowards, heroes, strong, sick, embarrassed, scared, courageous, liars, earnest, real. Dissenters who courageously fought for the justice of individual freedom, who with determination reminded us, without one, there is no us. If the soldier is an ideal representative of the national identity, a figure that the nation depends on, the dissenter equally defines the national conscience for its progress and identity. What truth can come to the nation without the rebel that demands it? All residents of this nation are kin in some way, by blood or culture, to a foreign land. Yet they are primarily and necessarily a part of the new and distinct civilization of the United States. They must accordingly be treated at all times as the heirs of the American experiment, and as entitled to all the rights and freedoms guaranteed by the Constitution.